What are Hasidic Jewish sects? Now, a little disclaimer, when I use the word sects, I just mean groups, dynasties. I do not mean the term in the sense of cults or in any negative connotation. There are many faith systems in Judaism. A major one is Orthodox Judaism, which regards the Torah as the word of God and abides by halakha or Jewish law. Orthodox Judaism further branches out to different movements: Sephardi, Yeshivish, Modern Orthodox, and Hasidic. Hasidic Judaism then further branches out to various groups, or as I often say on my channel, sects. Today, I'm going to explain what Hasidic Judaism is and, more importantly, what the sects are, which I often mention on my channel. For this introduction to Hasidic sects, I'll be drawing largely from this fantastic book, Hasidism, A New History, which is the seminal history introduction to Hasidic Judaism. The book was produced by a group of 8 major figures in Jewish academia, with Professor David Beal in the lead. So first, what is Hasidism? And here I'll quote from my book. Starting sometime in the middle of the 18th century, in the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, small circles of Jewish pietists coalesced around rabbis who would come to be called in Hebrew tzaddikim, which means righteous men, or in Yiddish, rebbes. Rebbe is an important term that we'll be talking about today. From the modest beginnings of these pietists emerged a movement that eventually named itself Hasidism, which is Hebrew for piety. The Rebbes served as intercessors between their Hasidim and God, providing the channels through which their followers could commune with the divine. Hasidim signified this relationship to God with such terms as dvaikus, which is ecstatic union, and avodah begashmius, which is worship through the material. They focused primarily on prayer rather than study. Above all, Hasidic theology emphasized divine immanence, that is, that God is present throughout the material world. From its beginning, Hasidism was far more than an intellectual movement. It was also a set of bodily practices, including praying, storytelling, singing, dancing, and eating, all performed within the frame of the reciprocal relationship between the Rebbe and his Hasid. The very first Hasidic tzaddik was the Baal Shem Tov. He's the founder of the Hasidic movement, and he died in 1760. After his death, his disciples became Rebbes in their own right, slowly spreading the movement of Hasidism. The word Hasid means pious ones, but within the context of the Hasidic movement, a Hasid is often used to describe a follower. So it is often used in the sense of so-and-so is a Hasid of, with an insert of the name of the Rebbe that he's a follower of. And the Rebbe's entire organization might be called a court, a dynasty, or as I say on my channel, a sect. So what are the sects? Each Hasidic Rebbe developed his own style, his own following, his own court, his own, sect. And the Rebbe would often be referred to as the Rebbe of the place he led from or came from. So the Rebbe from Zidichev was the Zidichever, and his followers were Zidichever Hasidim, and hence we have the Zidichever sect. And likewise for Rizhin, Rizhiner Rebbe, Rizhiner Hasidim, and Rizhiner sect, or Satmar, Satmar Rebbe, Satmar Hasidim, and Satmar sect. Each Rebbe and his following we refer to as a sect or as a dynasty, or in my book, it will be referred to often as a court. When the Rebbe of a sect or group passes on, traditionally the sect continues through patrilineal descent or passing on the mantle to a disciple or a family member. So to illustrate how different Rebbes or courts or sects in pre-war Europe might have been distinct, let me quote again from my book. While some tzaddikim, such as those of Zidichev and Kamarna, emphasized Kabbalah, the 19th century Hasidic leader, notably Israel of Rizhin, explicitly scorned the Kabbalistic theology of early movement in favor of a more practical, non-intellectual form of Hasidism. A new kind of leadership emerged in Galicia and Hungary of Rebbes who functioned simultaneously as tzaddikim and as traditional rabbinic legal authorities. Other creative innovations were not lacking, from the antinomian speculations of Izbit's Hasidim to the extreme and idiosyncratic asceticism of Menachem Mendel of Kutsk. So here we see that different sects are distinct from each other in philosophy, in style, in location, often grouped together regionally. From the very beginning, the Hasidic movement was a movement of groups, and each group had its own characteristic. Hence, we talk about different sects. Now, the Holocaust decimated the Hasidic movement, and after the war, it became near impossible for survivors to rebuild Hasidic life on the blood-soaked lands of Hungary, Romania, Ukraine, and so on, as they became part of the Soviet bloc, and hence they were in territories that were very hostile to religion. So the mass migration of the Hasidic movement occurred after World War II. And here's how my wonderful book describes this migration. While earlier Hasidim was almost exclusively an Eastern European phenomenon, the post-war movement had to reroot itself in new and radically changed circumstances in relatively small areas of settlement, primarily in North America and in what would become the modern state of Israel. A new concept of Hasidic place took hold. Hasidism came to see itself in exile from its original home in Eastern Europe, preserving the place names where it originated as the names of its Rebbe's courts. Eastern Europe became an imagined space, the site of hallowed memory. With the fall of communism and the end of travel restrictions in the former Eastern Bloc, holy sites, especially the graves of Rebbes, have resurfaced and today have become destinations of Hasidic pilgrimage. But place is but one dimension of Hasidic identity as it emerged in the post-war era. Hasidim turned Yiddish into a holy language, a way of preserving the vanished world of Eastern Europe. Clothing and a variety of other customs specific to each Hasidic group also assumed sacred meaning. Because they signified the old home, they could not be changed. In this fashion, a movement of tradition became traditionalist, that is, a movement whose raison d'etre was to conserve the past. Yet, of course, traditionalism of this sort is itself modern and an artifact of the post-war world. And so, here we are, Hasidism after the war, where it made a stunning revival in new lands. Many Rebbes settled in New York. Most of them are small, but some of them are really large. Each sect is typically named for the place where the sect originally began. So, we have Satmar from the border of Hungary and Romania. We have Belz from the town of Belz in western Ukraine near the Polish border. We have Lubavitch from White Russia. The Lubavitch sect is also called Chabad, which is an acronym, and it stands for Chachma, Bina, and Das, which is Hebrew for wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. We have Ger, originating from the town of Góra Kalwaria, Poland. We have Vizhnitz from Viznitzia, a town in present-day Ukraine, then a village in Austrian Bukovina. We have Skver, or Skvira, in present-day Ukraine. We have Babov, originating in Babawa, Galicia, in southern Poland. We have Bratslav, which is an urban-type settlement in Ukraine, located in Tolchin Rayon in Vinnytsia Oblast by the southern Bug River. There are hundreds of sects in all, but only tens of them are major sects that you will often hear about on my channel. A sect is major if it has not only a Rebbe, but an entire enormous organization spawning a network of schools, synagogues, charities, cemeteries, ladies and men's organizations, and even publications. For instance, in one of my videos, we visited the Bagleiten of the Satmar sect, which is arguably today the largest sect. It was an enormous affair. But we also visited the Shul and the Sukkah of the Liska sect, which is a tiny sect with just a little synagogue and none of the enormous institutions of Satmar. The challenge with learning about Hasidic sects is that some sects are similar to each other and so can be grouped under the umbrella term Hasidic, but others differ so much from each other that they can't all be spoken of in one category. So for instance, on my channel, I upload Hasidic advertisements. These ads are not specific to Satmar or Putba or Skver. I can't tell which sect the people in it are from because these sects are so similar to each other. So I have to group them under the umbrella term Hasidic, but I can tell with a fair bit of confidence that there are some sects that these advertisements are not from. They are not from the Israeli sects, and they are not from Lubavitch, which is a fairly different group. Lubavitch stands apart from other sects because of its fundamentally different approach to insularity. Chabad does outreach to other Jews, creating an exchange with the outside world that is distinctly different from the other sects.
Good afternoon, sir. Are you Jewish? Do any of you Jewish by any chance?
Excuse me, sir, are you Jewish?
Breslov is another sect that's rather apart. Here's again from my excellent book. While most Hasidim of the post-war period ignore the less religious and secular Jews among whom they live, two groups, Chabad Lubavitch and Breslov, have developed missionizing ideologies directed to the wider Jewish world. The seventh Lubavitcher Rebbe, Menachem Mendel Schneerson, is of particular importance since many of his followers regard him as a messianic figure. Even after his death in 1994, some believed that he continues to play an eschatological role in this world. The career of Schneerson and the ongoing vitality of his movement, as well as the other surviving groups of Hasidim, demonstrates that this religious phenomenon is not a mere relic of an earlier world, but continues its creative career today. Lubavitch is often the most well-known group because of this outreach, but they don't represent all Hasidim, of course. On my channel, I don't cover Lubavitch. I cover the sects that are often considered under one umbrella Hungarian sects. Sects that are from Hungarian regions and their thereabouts are very influenced by Hungarian sects, specifically the sects that are in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. The Williamsburg sects include Satmar, Vizhnitz, Pupa, Wien, Klosenberg, and more. In Borough Park, another Hasidic enclave I often cover, we have large representation of additional sects that we don't see in Williamsburg, like Bobov, Belz, Ger, Rachmastrivk, Lubavitch, and more. Crown Heights is another neighborhood in Brooklyn where the Lubavitch sect is headquartered. Finally, I will leave you with this quote from my book. Far from a mere fossil of the 18th century marooned on the streets of Jerusalem and Brooklyn, Hasidism is a dynamic part of the modern world. Indeed, starting in the 19th century and continuing to today, Hasidism's very identity is wrapped up in its struggle against modern secular culture and derives much of its identity from that struggle. So that's my introduction to Hasidic sects. I hope that this clarified some things, and I hope that this is the first in a series of videos that explores the topic. In part 2 of this series, I plan to visit some sect headquarters and dive a little deeper into the nature and distinguishments between different sects. I hope you enjoyed this little segment, and I thank you for watching. Bye-bye.